The film begins at Blackwood Pharmaceuticals, where a pre-recorded voice message plays inside the facility. The message claims that they specialize in determining how a drug affects the human body before it is released to the public. Simultaneously, a young woman named Claire arrives at Blackwood Pharmaceuticals to participate in a 5-day clinical trial for a large sum of money. She heads straight to her assigned room, which she must share with 2 other girls. One of them greets her, introducing herself as Allison. She immediately begins talking, but Claire finds her chatty nature annoying. Later, all participants are summoned to the exam room in the basement, which has no mobile signal. As a result, Claire's attempt to contact her worried mother is unsuccessful. Dr. Burke, who will be supervising the trial, addresses them shortly thereafter. She explains that the trial, known as the double-blind, will determine whether or not a new drug is safe. They will be given the drug, and the dose will gradually increase over the course of the days. All of them will be confined to the same floor for the next 5 days, under the close supervision of nurses. Following this, the trial officially begins. The participants receive their first dose of pills, and the nurses closely monitor their health throughout the day, repeatedly asking about any discomfort. During lunch, Claire meets the other participants and discovers that some of them have previously volunteered for similar trials. Vanessa, one of them, avoids socializing and prefers to be alone. She appears to have been homeschooled by her Orthodox religious parents and has had a difficult upbringing. Another participant, Amir, is a medical student who volunteered for the trial in the hopes of gaining valuable experience in the future, if he survives. Later that evening, Claire tries to take a nap, but Allison starts a conversation, which frustrates Claire and causes her to lash out at the talkative girl. Claire feels nauseous and rushes to the bathroom to vomit. As she walks out, she runs into Amir, who is also in the same state. It's probably a side effect of the drug. That night, a sleepless Claire awakens to find her roommate's beds empty. She walks into the living room where she discovers the other subjects in the same situation. This strange occurrence causes concern among the participants. However, Dr. Burke examines them the next morning and assures them that it is only a minor case of insomnia and that there is nothing to be concerned about. Time passes, and it has been roughly 30 hours since the participants slept. They spend most of their time in a large living room conversing and playing games. Meanwhile, Dr. Burke informs her superiors about the drug's negative effects on the participants. She inquires about the medication dose's accuracy, but the superiors remind her that it's a double-blind trial, which means neither the test subjects nor the supervisors have access to the experimental details. The doctor advises stopping the trial because it is directly affecting the participants' central nervous systems and causing brain inflammation. However, her superiors dismiss her concerns and tell her to carry on. Following this, Dr. Burke informs the participants of a change in the trial's course. Now, the goal is to see how long each participant can go without sleep. She also mentions that the medication dosage will be increased significantly. This enrages the participants, who refuse to take it, fearing that it will harm their bodies. They quickly change their minds after Dr. Burke offers them 30,000 euros each in exchange for their cooperation. The next day, Claire is getting ready for a CT scan. Her claustrophobia kicks in as soon as she enters the machine. She is haunted by a traumatic incident from her childhood when her cruel mother locked her in a small space. Claire, terrified, immediately asks the doctor to stop the scan and let her out. That evening, the participants sit around and talk, with each sharing their plans for when they receive their money. During their conversation, Allison suggests that they remain friends after the trial. Claire, on the other hand, declines and makes a disparaging remark. This offends Allison, prompting her to stand up and leave. Amir overhears the conversation and suspects something is wrong. As a result, he waits for the doctor to walk out before sneaking into her cabin. He searches through her computer and is surprised to find test results indicating brain inflammation. He immediately begins copying the information to a portable drive, hoping to expose the perpetrators once he is out. Back in the living room, the group is watching television when Claire notices Allison sitting alone. She goes to speak with her, regretting her previous behavior, only to find her asleep. As she tries to wake her, something unexpected happens. Allison begins bleeding from her eyes, nose, and ears, followed by a violent seizure that leads to her tragic death. Dr. Burke notices this from a distance, which makes her horrified. Moments later, they are notified of a security breach, and a 30-second countdown to lockdown begins. They all rush to the exit in a panic. Dr. Burke tries to exit through the closing door, but gets stuck in between. The participants pull her inside, but it is too late. In the aftermath, the clock resets, displaying a 24-hour countdown until the lockdown ends. Shortly after, Amir arrives and tells everyone what he saw. He explains that the drugs have pushed their brains to their limits, and sleeping while under the influence will kill them. As a result, he encourages everyone to remain awake for the next 24 hours, after which they can leave the facility and seek medical attention. Amir then administers smelling salts, instructing them to use them as a last resort. Following this, the group makes every effort to stay awake, which is clearly difficult given that they have already been awake for 100 hours. Later, Amir examines Claire's brainwaves and is alarmed by the findings. However, he chooses not to disclose this and continues to look for a solution. A while later, he begins to have hallucinations of Dr. Burke getting up, but he encourages himself to stay focused on the work. Only a few hours have passed and the group members are already struggling with their sleep deprivation. A participant named Ray runs out of supplies and begins pestering the others for theirs, but no one helps him. Claire looks at a painted wall and hears her mother's voice. Memories of her strange childhood flood her mind. But before she can succumb to them, she is startled awake by another participant, Marcus. Claire then encounters Vanessa, who uses fire to stay awake. Marcus opens the bathroom faucet but only hears the water after a few seconds, indicating that his hearing has been delayed. Just then, he has a hallucination of the exit door opening, but it is completely dark on the other side. As he enters it, he succumbs to his hallucinations in reality. With 15 hours left, Claire suggests that they work together to find a way out, claiming that if they wait any longer, they will face the same fate. Following her advice, the group creates a hand map to determine which wall to break. Amir claims that it will not work due to the facility's security system, but the others ignore him and begin taking turns breaking the wall with an axe. They eventually manage to dig a hole, but their efforts are thwarted when they encounter a thick metal wall guarding the facility. While the other members of the group are devastated, Claire goes to meet with Amir to discuss an alternative solution. She finds him in a lab room, but he appears distraught. When questioned, he hands her a confession letter stating that he caused the lockdown by copying the files and breaching security. Overwhelmed by guilt, he decides to sleep, but Claire stops him. She insists that there's no point in regretting anything now and advises him to make amends by assisting them. Motivated by her words, Amir suddenly has an idea. By using certain medicines as poison, he can produce an effect that would normally result in brain death. However, because they are under the influence of a strong drug, it should neutralize the drug's effect on them. Claire rushes to tell the others about this plan, but they no longer trust Amir. They suspect he works for Blackwood Pharma based on his prior knowledge of the security system. Furthermore, Ray discovered a bottle of stimulant in Amir's belongings, which he had forbidden them from using. Now that the bottle is empty, they conclude that Amir was secretly taking them to alleviate his sleep deprivation. During their conversation, Amir walks in, and they immediately confront him about the stimulant. Despite his claim that he kept it for safety, Ray punches him in the face before tying him up. Despite Claire's objections, the group members decide to force him to confess using any means necessary. Claire, in a desperate attempt to stop them, reveals that Amir has a cure for their pain. The group remains skeptical, so she offers to test the cure on herself. Amir instructs the group on how to prepare the antidotes. They eventually create the required chemical solution after following his instructions step by step. But as they try it on Claire, Vanessa collapses to the ground and has a seizure. Ray takes quick action by administering the newly made solution to her, but his hasty movement causes the solution jar to fall and shatter. Following this tragic event, Claire returns to the living room to check on the remaining time. However, her blurry vision distorts the numbers, resulting in the phrase, "good night." Her gaze shifts to the painted wall. While staring at it, she hears her mother's voice and envisions darkness surrounding her. Realizing she's about to fall asleep, she takes out the salt packet, but it slips out of her grasp. The hallucinations worsen, making her feel as if she's floating in the air. Despite this, she makes every effort to reach the packet and consumes it right away in order to snap out of it. She then uses the painted wall to stand on her feet. During this, she suddenly notices that the wall feels different. With renewed hope, she summons Ray, and the two dismantle the wall, revealing a secret room behind it. Upon entering, they discover a door that appears to lead to the elevator. Claire decides to inform the rest of the group, but Ray insists on leaving silently, resulting in an argument. Meanwhile, the restrained Amir has a vision of a deceased Dr. Burke, who begins manipulating his thoughts. She mentions how the others abandoned him to die and encourages him to fight for himself. She also points to the knife on the ground, indirectly persuading him to kill the others. Just then, Ray discovers Amir's confession letter, confronts him, but before he can do so, the manipulated Amir escapes his restraints and knocks Ray down. He then grabs a nearby knife and repeatedly stabs Ray to death. Claire and Ray hear the commotion and rush back inside. As they enter the lab room, they are horrified by what they see. Claire tries to calm Amir down after she realizes he has gone insane. However, Dr. Burke's hallucination causes Amir to attack them as well. Sensing impending danger, the two of them flee, with Amir pursuing. Ray enters the living room but locks the door, leaving Claire behind. Claire, with nowhere else to go, enters the MRI room, only to be cornered by Amir. He pins her down, but just as he's about to stab her, the MRI machine's magnet removes the knife from his grasp. Claire takes advantage of the opportunity to kick him out before leaving the room. Ray, on the other hand, makes it to the elevator and activates it, only to discover that it is actually an incinerator. Soon after, massive flames burst from the walls, engulfing him in a fiery death. Returning to Claire, she moves to another room and defends herself with a pair of scissors. At this point, Amir and Claire are on the verge of falling asleep. But just before they close their eyes, the clock timer reaches 0, signaling the end of the lockdown. When Amir notices the opening of the exit door, he walks towards it but is stopped by a group of armed men who immediately shoot him. When Claire hears the gunshots, she hides in a room while the men clear the area. Claire attempts to flee while they search the other rooms, but she stumbles upon the bodies and bags. Hearing the men approaching, she covers her face with blood and hides inside one of the bags, pretending to be dead.
I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next video.